Hello class and Miss Welch. I want to thank y'all for coming to view my briefing today. My name is Brandon Bellon. I'm a junior here at Troy, and my briefing today is about visual aids, reasons why you need to use them or why they're beneficial, and also I'm going to talk to you about some do's and don'ts when using visual aids. There are all types of visual aids. PowerPoint presentations, you can scroll through on internet sites using your iPad. You can give handouts to people. You can just show certain objects. There are all types of visual aids. Today I want to go through some that I prepared on my iPad, and I'm going to show you today on the projector, and go through some things you need to watch out when you're using them, what to do and what not to do. First of all, I want to show why they're important. As you can see here on this graph right here, we have blues and yellows, and what this is a retention and percentages over here. The blues is what people retain after 3 hours. As you can see, verbally, visually, and verbal and visual. Verbally, after 3 hours, it's over 70, right at 70% or over 70%. All three, verbal, visual, and verbal, visual, after 3 hours, they're all very high. So when you give a presentation, normally after 3 hours, people are going to remember what you just informed them of, or what you were trying to teach them, or what you wanted them to take away from your presentation. The one we want to concentrate more on is the yellow, after 3 days. This is where you want people to remember what you said later on. You want them to retain it. And as you can see here in the yellow, the verbal, 10%, very low. You want it to be higher than that. So you think, what ways to get it higher? As you can see here, verbal and visual. Visual, 20%, twice as high as verbal, but still not verbal and visual. Almost 70%, 65%. That's where you want to be at. You'd love it if it's 100%, of course. But from all the studies that people have done, the 65% using verbal and visual is as high as it gets. So, of course, that's why you want to use visual aids. So when possible, of course, try to incorporate visual aids. It'll help people, your audience, retain the information. Now that you know why visual aids are important, I want to give you some do's and don'ts using visual aids. Right here. Use visual aids sparingly. You don't want your whole presentation to be visual aids. Unfortunately for me, my presentation is about visual aids. So this whole presentation, I will normally have something up there showing y'all. But if you're doing your own presentation, of course, you want to hit key points using visual aids. So people remember those key points. Some of the other information that's not as important, you don't have to have it up for them to see it. Next thing, make them visible. Of course, right here, you might not be able to see that. Of course, I would want to have it bigger. I want it visible to you, so you can read it. When people aren't able to read anything on your visual aid, they can get frustrated because they're not following it. They think other people can see it. They're following it. Why can't I see it? I don't know what's going on. And you can lose their attention altogether. This is something, of course, that you don't want to do. You want them to be able to see and understand what you're trying to tell them. The next thing, talk to the audience, not to your aide. Like I'm doing right now, I'm looking at y'all. I'm talking to y'all. I have a visual aid up here, but I am not turned with my back to y'all to where y'all can't see me, hear me. You lose connection that way. You want to stay connected to your audience. You don't want to be turned around looking at the visual aid pointing stuff out. So you need to really learn your visual aid to where you can point to stuff. Talk to the audience. Not turn around. Talk to the audience. There's different ways to do this. You can know pretty much where everything's going to be at so you can point to it while still being connected to the audience. Or there's apps that you can use on your iPad to where you can draw on the iPad and it will show up on the screen if you want to point to something. So there's different ways to do it. But make sure, stay connected to your audience. Next one, explain the content when you first show your slide. Like I've been doing, I'll pull a slide up, I'll explain it, I'll be talking about that slide. You don't want to pull a slide up when you're still talking about the last slide you were on or something else. It takes people's attention away from what you're talking about. They don't know if they want to look at the aid, listen to what you're saying. They can get confused, or once again, you can lose their attention altogether. That's something you don't want. So when you pull a slide up, or when you pull an image up, talk about that image as soon as you pull it up and explain it to them. The next thing, when you finish with it, cover it up, remove it. As I've been doing so far, I pull images up, I talk about them, then I pull another image up and go on to something else. But like we stated earlier, use visual aids sparingly. When you're using your visual aids, you're not going to have them up the whole time. So when you get done hitting that key point using your visual aid, you'll want to turn it off and then start talking so that people concentrate on what you're saying and not trying to read on further or look at something else and get distracted. You want to keep their attention. You don't want to lose their attention. You want them to be focused on you, learning from you. You want to be teaching them. So make sure when you're using your visual aid, when you get done with it, turn the screen off. Have nothing up there to where they can be focused on. The next thing, be prepared to give your presentation without a visual aid. Like it says, Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, especially with technology. This is actually, I'm not going to say funny, but with my presentation, that's why I hope y'all are watching it a few days late, although it was due Sunday. I ended up having problems trying to get my iPad to show what I wanted on the screen. Unfortunately for me, that was my whole presentation, is about visual aids. So I needed to have this to be able to show up here. That was one of the basis of my whole presentation. When you do a presentation, it's not going to be about visual aids, so you're going to have something up there the whole time. Your presentation, you might be using just key points to show it up there. You might have an image up there 3 or 4 times during the whole presentation. Well, what you can do is you can have handouts prepared. If something goes wrong, your iPad, your computer, Wi-Fi access doesn't work, you can use this, a handout. Or what if you lose your handouts? Be prepared to give a presentation with nothing. Of course, you're probably wondering, well, I retained from earlier, I saw the images that 65% using visual and verbal. Why would I want to give one without using visuals? Because Murphy's Law, you never know. You don't know what can happen. You might not have the use of visual aid. 10% verbally is better than nothing. I hope that y'all can see why visual aids are important. I hope that y'all have learned a little bit from my do's and don'ts, things you need to do, things you need to avoid. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I'm glad that I was able to attend this class with all of y'all. I'm glad that you were teaching it, Ms. Welch. I enjoyed it. And I hope to see y'all in Leadership 3300. And hope y'all have a happy holiday.